Here is part one of a story my cousin wrote at the age of 12 in 1970 or so. The Pony's Grave by Deirdre Moursund. Today, Friday, is the end of school. Our cousins, Eric, Lisa, and Carl, are coming to stay for the week. Our cousin's last name is Johnson. Lisa is in the 4th grade. She is about as tall as I am. She is to sleep in my room. Eric is in the 5th grade and is sleeping in Bob's room. Carl is also sleeping in Bob's room and is 5 years old. I am a cousin of Bob, Frank, and Fred. Frank is in the 8th grade. Bob is in the 5th grade. Fred is in the 3rd grade. I just came back from Europe. We stayed there 1 year. I've stayed in the Weems's house 2 weeks. My mother and father have been here 5 nights. Well, before I start the story, I must tell you about the house. The house is old and is warm and cozy. It has 13 rooms which are spread out on 3 floors, not counting the basement. The room I am writing this in is a mask room. It was named that by my father because it is full of all sorts of masks. Up to now I have been writing in the present tense, but now I am going to write in the past tense. That day was a very exciting day. It started off when Bob said, "Let's go to the Pony's grave." We did. We went the ordinary way, up from the lawn, through the trees, under a tree, and through the poison ivy. When we got there, we showed Eric and Lisa the old fort, now a hole, and the grave. As we looked at the grave, we heard footsteps coming close, and around the tree appeared 2 faces, a man and his girl. The man did not live where he came from, which was through a field belonging to the neighbor. The man said hello. So did the girl. The girl looked about 8 years old, and the man was about 32 and looked big and strong. We asked him, "What is your name?" He did not tell us, but changed the subject. He said that he used to live in the house and that he owned the field. We did not believe him. He went on to say that he used to play in the wood, which belonged to the Weemses. Then he spied the grave. We told him that it was Lucky who was buried in that grave. When we said Lucky, he looked surprised. We were to realize why later. He also told us that there was a ghost in the woods. We went on to say that his daughter had won a silver plate for first prize in a horse race. He kept on bragging on things that he used to do. Later on, he said that he was going to dig up the horse's grave when the bones were dry. Finally, we said that we had to go to lunch. The man said goodbye in a fiendish voice. His girl gave us an impish grin. After lunch, we went to investigate the grave. We heard a rustling noise, so we jumped into a hole. Eric and I went to see what was making the noise. We found that it was the girl we had seen with the man and a boy. The boy had yellow hair and looked about the same age as the girl. The girl whispered something into the boy's ear. He scoffed and threw his eyes high. They both walked off giggling. When we walked off a few yards and plunged into the hole. Then we walked off a few yards and plunged into the hole. The hole is, or used to be, an old fort. We use it as a meeting place or a hideout. Now we are going to hold a meeting in it. The thing we discussed was about the man and his 2 children. We asked each other what we should do about it. Then Fred came up with the idea that we should sleep out. Then we elected a person to go ask the parents. The person we elected was me. When I asked, Joy said that they would have an adult conference to talk about sleeping outside. While they, the adults, were talking, we decided to go into the barn where Lucky had been kept. The barn was owned by the neighbors whose field the man and the girl had passed through. As we entered the barn, we saw hay and Lucky's stall. Lisa said, "Let's go. There is nothing here." I said, "Okay." Just as I stepped out to go, I heard footsteps. "Shush," I said. "Listen." The footsteps were coming closer. "Quick, get into Lucky's stall." We opened the gate and sprawled in. We stayed close to the gate so that if whoever looked over the gate would see over us unless he looked down. We stayed close to the gate so that if whoever looked over the gate would see over us unless he looked down. As we crouched close to the gate, we heard someone opening the door. As the crack of light sped in, we would see clearly that it was the man we had seen before, but this time he was with another man. This man was very short and fat and was smoking a cigar. We heard the man say, "You get that end, Joe." As he said that, they lifted up one of the bundles of hay. It seemed to us that they were acting as if they were very heavy. In fact, they had to put it down to get a firmer hold. As they stepped out of the door, they ran, and in the distance we saw a black convertible, which we saw the men climb into. We also saw them lift up the seat and put the bundle of hay into it. As we saw the black car drive off, we climbed out of Lucky's stall. Then we ran as fast as we could to the hole to talk it over. For a while we just sat and stared at each other, thinking of all the horrible things that could have happened to us. The first one to speak was Fred. "I wonder what was in the hay. "That certainly proves we must sleep out tonight, because they might come back," I said. "Let's go see what the parents' decision was," said Eric. "Providing no one tells of what went on just now, because if we told them we might not be able to sleep out," said I. The answer was yes, but we had to sleep on the front lawn. We were all very happy that we could. That afternoon we went swimming, and I caught 2 horseshoe crabs. Well, this will be continued in part 2, this work of my cousin when she was 12.